Consider the beauty of a blooming rose, or the perfect peony, or stems of golden sunflowers. Their petals bring joy to our lives, but only while they last, right? With a background in the fresh floral business, Liz Carter imagined something very long-lasting when she launched Unwilted. And in doing so, Liz better understood the need for creativity, something she calls, very wisely, her best friend. On this episode of the Wendy Crafts podcast, you'll hear how life's trials and hardships can be catalysts for healing and creativity. Welcome back to Wendy Crafts, the podcast where we heal through the creative work of our hearts and hands. I'm Wendy Townley, and for over a decade, crafting has given me resilience, purpose, and strength. On today's episode, we discover how a fresh, floral business blossomed into something completely new for entrepreneur Liz Carter and her business, Unwilted. Creativity came with the transformation, as did the way Liz viewed the role of creativity in her daily life. Well, Liz, it is great to have you here today on the Wendy Crafts podcast. I want to apologize in advance if my eyes veer and I start looking at the beautiful floral arrangement behind you for those viewers who are watching us on YouTube, but it is stunning and worth a look. And we will definitely get to your art form today. But thank you for making the time and sitting down with us today.
Oh my gosh, it's my pleasure. When you mentioned this, I was like, I've never been on a podcast, but I listen to them all the time. So
good. Today's the day. Great. Well, I love talking to creatives from all backgrounds, all walks of life, all creative disciplines for this podcast. And again, we'll get to your art form and the beautiful things you produce in a second. But from a creative standpoint, one of the things that I've learned from so many of our guests is this concept of flow state. This idea where you kind of enter almost like a meditative state where the rest of the world just drifts away and you are focused on what you're creating, what you're planning, what you're working on. And with that, I am curious for you personally, when you get to that flow state or whatever you call it, when you are not dealing with Excel spreadsheets or budgets or shipping and you are just in the act of creating, tell me how you're feeling and how that's manifesting physically, emotionally, mentally.
I like to call it the fun stuff.
Okay, good. I like that.
Yeah. I think I've always been creative. I'm sure we'll talk about this, but ever since I can remember, there's just times in my life where I find an art form or a craft or something where it just clicks and it just makes sense. And I don't want to say I lose time because most of my art form or my art practice has been in the world of flowers, fresh and paper. So to me, that art form is more of, it's like painting in real time because most of the time you're selling to a customer. So in fresh flowers, you're almost painting with flowers, but you have to keep your eye on the time because deliveries have to happen or people are coming in to pick up or something like that. So with flowers, it is a little bit more difficult to be in like a flow state. But I think with paper flowers, it's much easier because, especially when I was developing this line, really picking through the details of the flower and how it's constructed. Once you start learning that, then it becomes almost like you're an engineer. And so you can really dig down into the different types of flowers and how they're made based on what you've learned in just terms of construction. So it's sort of twofold. Like while it's really fun and while it's really pretty, your brain is just picking up all these different little pieces that you don't really know when you're going to use them later. Mm-hmm. So it's like this exploratory space of allowing yourself just to have fun and make mistakes, but also just gathering information. Mm-hmm. You don't know what you are going to need later, especially when you're a creative person. Sometimes it's like 2 + 2 = 5.
That's a good way to put it.
That magic law, that magic number is just that, or that, that last little piece is just something that you wouldn't have put together as a normal solution. But in that space of when you've allowed yourself to play and just like wander, I guess, in your mind, you kind of never know where you're going to pick up those breadcrumbs.
Yeah, where you'll find them. Well, you hit on such a key point that we've talked about with other guests already, is that idea of giving permission to make mistakes. I know creatively when I'm working, like, and the eye roll right there tells me exactly the sigh. I know I'm there because whether I'm working on a card for a customer or a client, or I'm just doing it just for me to send out to someone, I will subconsciously sabotage my flow state, my fun stuff by making what I would deem a mistake. And then I kind of, for a second, get really hard on myself and then have to say, hey, wait a minute, like you're entering into this for fun and beauty. So for you, tell me about kind of that process when that happens for you with making the mistake and having the ability to release it. Because I will say, in talking with other creatives, sometimes that stops them cold entirely and then they walk away, especially if they're trying something new. And that's the opposite of what creativity is supposed to give us and provide us.
I couldn't have said it better myself. I think it is hard to make mistakes when you have this vision in your head of, I know I can make it. I know how I want it to look. And I also know how I want the end result to feel. And it's almost like, because if you're this really creative person, you've always been able just to make something. You've always been able to create something how you want it to. And if it's not turning out how you want it to, then it's internally frustrating. In my business, often that comes with a lot of emotional stuff. I've always said that flowers are a gift of emotion. When people are buying flowers, they're often buying for like a celebration, a wedding, an anniversary, a birth, or a passing, or something very emotional. So the art that I've always created has this kind of added weight that I may or may not take personally. I take personally.
Yeah.
Because I just want people to love it so much and to feel happy by receiving these gifts. I think within business and maybe a creative business, it is also hard to kind of give yourself that space to make a mistake, because you're sort of out here on your own, making it up as you go along. And you want it to work.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes it's really hard to give yourself that space to say, 80% is still close. But I don't know. I haven't really found the secret way to get rid of that little like, yeah. If you find it, let me know.
Good point. I'll text you.
Thank you.
2 a.m. I'll have had the revelation, like all good ideas arrive. It is. Well, we hinted at it a little already, and creativity obviously gives us place for growth and experimentation. But I found for me, that it can be a very safe place and a very healing place. So for you, with regards to Unwilted, or when you were still in Fresh Flowers, or otherwise, how has creativity and being creative provided safety and comfort for you?
I was thinking about this question because I did listen to some of your podcasts, and it is, I find it hard to separate. Creativity for me has always just been a part of my person. And I think in some ways it's been like a friend. For instance, there have been times where, you go through a hard time, or you're not sure what you want to do with your life. And I've always been able to turn to crafting or creating or painting or making flowers as not only a way to create an income or a life for me and my family, but also to, it's almost like my best friend, like a space I know, a space that's safe, a space that I make the rules, and that is able to change. And maybe that's sort of what you were talking about with mistakes. I tend to rephrase things a bit in my mind sometimes. It's almost like, if I can make it and I can change it, then I can change what it needs to be in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody really has to know your end result. You're the only one that has the plan. So if you keep pivoting or you keep being creative, the end result is still pretty creative and pretty amazing had you not started.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's such a good point. And what you intend to be the end product may be completely different once you get there. I've had that happen so many times as well. But you can surprise yourself with what you can accomplish and how far you can even push yourself creatively.
Yeah, and how flexible creativity can be. Especially in starting a business, it's been really interesting for me to allow parts of this business to grow that I hadn't necessarily dreamed of when I first started. And to give myself that permission to allow this idea to blossom in its own way, and to allow the surprises, whether they're frustrating or not, to be exciting as well.
Well, this is a perfect time to talk about your business and Unwilted. We met at a very exciting conference a few months ago, Alt Summit in Palm Springs, and I saw your vendor booth across the room. And out of all of them, I said, that I need to go meet her. And it was gorgeous. And I'll be honest, I was shocked that what I was looking at were paper flowers and not real. And once I got up and started touching all of them, which I don't know if you want customers to do, but I did, I was amazed at the intricacy of it. So tell us a little more about your background with Fresh Florals and then how you changed to bring Unwilted.
So I had gone to college at Michigan State University for basically social work. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I did end up moving out to Utah to work with kids who had been in like juvenile detention. Then I had moved to Colorado and I was still sort of doing that sort of outdoor activity work. And to meet new people and just to make a little extra money, I started working in a flower shop and I just fell in love. Every day was a new palette, every day, like all the textures, all the combinations, it just sang to me. I ended up buying a flower shop and growing it to have multiple locations. And then I was in a pretty abusive relationship. So I ended up leaving the Colorado area and I moved to Portland, Oregon, actually, for a little bit. I started a small business there with one of my friends. We were doing ceramics and some other things, more of like a gift shop in the area featuring local artists. And I started dabbling in paper flowers. I'd found it on social media and I just missed flowers. I didn't realize the connection that had for me in terms of creativity. So I figured out paper flowers I figured out the type of paper to make these flowers and I was just dabbling around with it and making sort of a name for myself. And my parents started aging as parents do. Mm-hmm. So I ended up moving back to Michigan and kept building these flowers, making I was doing things on Instagram. I was doing more like art pieces. So one-offs. I had a little Etsy shop. And then I was approached by some investors and they suggested the idea of scaling this. And I was like, oh, this is art. Mm-hmm. But the more
How dare you?
I know.
Give me money to be successful. I know that's the artist in us. I know. I get it.
Yes. Well, it was beyond me because I was just doing this out of my basement with these, one-off rolls of paper. And so the scaling aspect of it was sort of beyond me at the time. But the more I started thinking about it, it really made sense to me because as a fresh florist, these were the problems that I encountered: perishability, water, seasonality, people's flowers not lasting just based on supply and demand. So it really did make sense once we started to figure it out. So lo and behold, we ended up finding a factory overseas to manufacture what we need to scale. I've designed all of the flowers. I make all of the I design all the bouquets. We get all the flowers here to our studio in Michigan. We put together all of the bouquets. We put together all the single stem selections that people would like, and then they ship out from here. So we are just in the end of our Mother's Day rush, and we have been quite busy. It's pretty exciting, and I'm just seeing what's next.
It's incredible. And having seen you in person and then stalking you considerably on social media, I'm in love with your pieces and what you create and just the ingenuity of what you bring to life in a fashion that will never die. I mean, that's what's just so exciting about it. And it does make a gift. And I had never really thought of it until you said it today, that flowers are emotion and they are conveying so many different emotions, as us as the giver, but we receive emotions when we get the flowers. So your flowers are just are speaking volumes of that as well. I wanted to take a couple steps back and talk a little bit about, since you hinted at it earlier, as having gone through a pretty challenging relationship from what you've shared. I'd like to know if and how creativity created a safe space for you at that time, or has offered you any healing now that, that experience, at least from like a day-to-day, is a bit behind you. I know it's a sensitive topic, but as much as you're willing to share.
Oh, thanks. Well, I think it's taught me a lot. It's shown me that throughout my life, there's been moments where I need to be very resilient. And I think in terms of turning to creativity, I just don't know where else to turn. I've always been like this, and I've always been somebody who can see a bigger picture. So I think that allowing myself the space to really take this idea and run with it, it's almost like I'm proving to myself that I can achieve the things that I want to achieve despite the things that I've gone through. Having said that, it doesn't mean that there aren't days where you doubt yourself, or there are little like inklings of, should I make different decisions in my life? But I think the other part of it is that every step that you take in your journey, you just really don't know where it's going to point you. And I don't know if I would have found paper flowers had I not been in that situation.
Wow.
And so there's sort of part of me that's like, I hate to be callous, but it's kind of like, oh, well, I learned and now I'm here. And this is pretty great. And I'm pretty proud of myself.
You should be.
Like there isn't sunshine without rain. There isn't a flower that blooms all the time. Your life is a series of mistakes and challenges. But I think that's what I was saying about being creative. Like that's always been something that I'm constant with. So the fact that it's so reliable now, and that I've built something that I feel like I can really depend on completely and only from my creativity and perseverance, I'll take it.
Mm-hmm. And you've built it with your own two hands, despite what you've been through. And I think your story is such a testament to others who are listening today, especially women who may find themselves in similar situations, or in situations where they just lack hope and direction.
I think we all, as women, can commiserate with that statement in multiple ways. But I think in terms of domestic violence, if you're in a group of women and there's 3 other people there, chances are somebody has been abused. Mm-hmm. And that's just awful. Mm-hmm. If I do say so myself.
It is.
But I do think that women in general, especially creative women, are fierce beasts, and they can survive a lot of things based on their ability to turn to themselves and take care of themselves. And perhaps that's maybe what you're talking about too with creativity. It does nurture something in you that is unlike anything really. Like, you can't buy it.
Mhm.
You can't. There's no amount of. I mean, sure, you can buy a new shovel to do your gardening with.
Yes. Or new craft
Right?
supplies that feel so
Yes,
good when they show up on your front porch.
that's a different line item.
Very much so. Yeah. What you're describing is just decidedly different.
Yeah, but something like painting a mural on the wall or making a quilt, something like this, like the time that it takes, the ability that it takes, the perseverance that it takes, and the willingness that it takes to make those mistakes. Like, all of those things have to kind of all work together along with your free time.
Yes. And your downtime to just like go to the grocery store and go for a walk outside. All of that has to be key. Very true. Yeah, very, very true. And I can think back just to my own self and using creativity as a healing place and a comforting place, and knowing that I am never going to forget, and I'm going to think of you all the time, that creativity is your best friend. And I'm visualizing that, and like, who do you turn to when you're hurting or you're scared or you're in a really tough place and don't know what to do? You go to a best friend, and creativity is that for us. And so we've talked about how creativity has healed you. I'm curious, with either the fresh floral business or with Unwilted, if you've witnessed or heard of any stories where your work is healing others. Any anecdotes or customer stories that you can think of to share?
We do get a lot of feedback. People really do love our flowers. I think too, for sensitivities and people who haven't been able to have fresh flowers in their life, it's really great. I do have one story. One of my very first customers had said that he'd gifted flowers to his wife, and she loved them so much she took them from room to room throughout the day with her to see like how they were in the house.
I love that's like an interior designer like aesthetic that I can get behind that. I love that.
Yeah, I thought it was so sweet. And we get a lot of feedback from people who say, this is my favorite flower, but I can never get it because it's out of season or something like that. So I think we've really hit a nerve, or I don't know if that's the word for it, but there is something to having flowers that last. And I think that it's been really nice to feel like I've been able to, I don't want to say invent, because I did not invent paper flowers, but to take my creativity and my knowledge of the fresh floral world and retail and combine it with this art form in order to make it accessible for people who love crafts, love flowers, love watching YouTube videos, but don't want to go all in and buy all the bits and bobs. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure your studio is a pristine space that's very organized.
Hell no. I mean, when I have to take photos, yes. But otherwise, coming off of a 3-day crafting weekend I just had, there is stuff everywhere. SHIT shit everywhere. So, and I love it.
Exactly what I mean. Making something, it's not just the finished product. It's all of the pieces. So Unwilted has been a really interesting way for me to take my creativity and allow other people to access that without them having to actually make all of these things themselves. Mm-hmm. It's almost like I'm helping.
Yeah. Maybe. In a huge way. You really are. Yeah. And when you were describing hearing from customers who buy flowers from Unwilted because they don't grow where they live, or they can't access them, or they don't have a long life, I can relate to that, because anytime I'm have a pretty modest green thumb, but when I've been successful growing flowers, I always have this internal struggle of, if I cut the peonies off the peony bush, yes, I'll bring them in the house, but how long are they going to last? And then I love the luscious green leaves, but then I'm not going to have any flowers. And like, that's the, That's what I
Yes.
deal with. But knowing that I could like have a beautiful array of peonies that are going to look pristine and beautiful all year round, and to move them from room to room is very exciting to me. And I can still honor like the ones that I'm growing, but to have something what you offer is very exciting and very comforting, if I can say so too, in a good way.
Oh, that's so sweet. It's been really rewarding to grow this business and to see the response and the reaction to this art form from the general public.
Well, and clearly understanding what you produce on a regular basis, that takes a lot of your creative energy, that's coming from you. How do you foster or maintain that creative spirit, that creative fire in you without getting too depleted? That's a question I struggle with, and I love talking to other creatives about it because it's not an infinite reservoir, if only.
It is not. It is not. I'm looking forward to next week. I think I need to get some laundry done.
Okay. Doing a load of towels. I get it.
It is a good question. I'm not sure because the things that do feed me sometimes are also the things that just grind my gears, like laundry, like gardening, like cooking. But I think it is important to take some time away from being super creative too. We live next to a wild space, and so we always walk down there and see the ducks and stuff. The hard part for me is my brain ends up kind of running through ideas, things I could do, things I want to do when I do take that downtime. So I don't know if I'm the best person to ask about that.
Well, you're able to do it because clearly, you're still in business. So it's whatever you're doing is working.
Well, thanks. I'll keep doing it.
You're like, even if I'm crying on the inside, everything outside looks just fine.
Well, but I think that's part of being a florist. Events wise, you have to figure it out.
Yeah.
In the world of fresh flowers, you have your day-to-day deliveries and you have your office decor and your normal birthdays, celebrations, your kind of dailies. Then you have events and weddings, mitzvahs. So if you forget something or you need to make it up on the fly, this is the face you get while my brain is going, oh, no.
Yeah.
What am I going to do?
But she looks so zen. Liz looks just so peaceful and just, just a place of safety and comfort.
Well, I think there's a lot you can do to tell your brain that things are okay, even if they're not, even in those times of chaos that we've been talking about. And one thing that I've tried to do, but maybe doesn't often work, is I try not to let the outside influence my inside and vice versa. I'm not an expert at it, but I do think that if you project into the world something, that's what you're going to kind of reflect or get back. And in the end of things, these are just flowers. And I hate to say it like that because it is true. Like they are gifts of emotion, this, that, the other. But we can sort it out. We can figure it out. We can make another one. We can ship it overnight. The problems that you're going to encounter, whether you're big business, small business, just crafting on the side or not, I think sometimes if you just take a deep breath, take a step back, brush yourself off, your creativity will take care of it. You'll figure out a way, or you'll say, you'll click into the computer and be like, I didn't know that was an option to ship it that way, or this, that, the other. I think we tend to wind ourselves up. Believe me, my husband would be dying laughing right now because I do it to myself all the time.
Wait, in fact, I think I can hear him laughing right now.
Yes. Yeah. I made him come tape boxes this week. So, but I think it is important to be your own best friend in those moments too, of hey, what do you need right now? Do you need 5 minutes? Because 5 minutes for yourself, it's not going to make or break this project or this situation. Yes, there's time limits on deliveries and things during business hours, but it's not worth the mental gymnastics of turning yourself inside out. That's not what we're here to do.
Because the recovery from that exercise, and I speak from experience, is so much worse. Like the coming back from that, and the herbal tea, and the, my essential oils and my Zen music. And it's like, just be kinder to yourself. Yeah, exactly. Just be nice to yourself at the beginning, and then you won't have to do all this. So, well,
I know the games we play in our own heads, right?
I know. It's like the Olympics, just year round.
Yes.
Well, last question I have for you today, Liz, is really one of the motivating factors for me wanting to have this podcast on and having so many different guests to talk to for our viewers and our listeners, is offering a creative community and creative allies, because some friends I know and some creative brands that I follow have massive followings, and you can just tell they have very rich lives surrounded by a lot of creatives. Others, it's much smaller and much more intimate. And I really feel that although our creativity, as you said, is our best friend, it does help to have other human beings in our lives, whether that's we're living with them or we see them on a regular basis through work, or even if they're close contacts online, that become our creative community and become our creative allies. And I, even in our short friendship, I'm already feeling that with you immediately. So you're getting another friend today, whether you want it or not. But outside of me, I want to know who in your life are your creative allies?
Oh, geez. I would definitely say my daughter. It's pretty fun to let loose and just jump into the mud puddle or whatever situation she's gotten herself into, and to let those voices of those kind of doubtful voices of like, oh, well, I'm gonna have to clean this up, whatever. She's a kid, just have fun. So it's mostly her these days. She's only 4. So
okay, that was going to be my question. How old is she?
There's a lot of mischief that we can get into.
Sounds like it. Sounds amazing, actually.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the summer. I'm hoping to get back into the garden a little bit. It must be shocking to you, but I do love flowers, and I do love to see things grow. So that's one way that I unwind. But there's not a lot of ways to do that in the first quarter of the year, given my business, because we go Valentine's Day right into Mother's Day. So it's been a little bit wild.
Mm-hmm. So your daughter is one for sure. It sounds like she's top of the list for a creative ally. Anyone else in your life?
Let's see. My husband loves to golf. I'm the artist of the family. So
clearly.
Yeah. I've got some really dear friends who I keep in touch with. I think you met one of them, Anna von Rosensteel. She was at Alt Summit. And it's really important for us to get together a couple times a year just to bounce things off of each other. And then I've got a few other people that I connect with, I guess, in terms of next projects or how to tackle next projects. But I would say that's more of like a creative business aspect of my life. So you definitely hit the nail on the head. The number one outside of this is my daughter and Play-Doh.
Good. Good. And sometimes both, I would think, on the same day. Good. Well, Liz, I want to thank you again for taking some time from your studio in Michigan today to speak with us and share your thoughts on creativity, and also share the road you've taken to get to such a beautiful place. And I'm so excited to have been able to discuss your journey and talk more about your creative process and the beautiful things you're putting out in the world for all of us to enjoy. So thank you so much. This has been great.
Oh, it's been such a pleasure. I was really looking forward to it. And it's just so easy to talk to you. So it was easy.
Thank you, Liz. Likewise. Or as the kids say, same.
Oh,
same.
Gotta keep it young.
That's right. Yes, we do. Okay. Thank you again.
Thanks, Wendy.
I want to thank today's guest, Liz Carter from Unwilted, for joining us on the podcast. Personally, my biggest takeaway was when I asked about her relationship with creativity, and she described creativity and being creative as her best friend. Love that, and I'll be using that. If Liz's story and Liz's message resonated with you, I'd encourage you to click the link in the show notes. You can meet Liz and, more importantly, discover her Unwilted garden. And in doing so, you can learn how her creative take on flowers can be part of your daily world.